Hey friends, come on in. We just waiting on you. We just want to have just a little candid talk about mental health awareness. I'm sure many of you know May is mental health awareness, and we couldn't let this month pass without sharing our story. Just letting the audience build up, giving them time to get in. Are we on mute? No, they can see us, they can hear us. Most of you know this is my BFF. This is my mother. She don't really do Facebook. She don't really do any of that. So this is another milestone. This is a big thing for her because this is just not her thing. Um, but this is an important topic that we wanted to discuss and to share with you. In case anyone is asking, we don't own the rights to any of this music. We just listening to it, just sitting out here enjoying our backyard. This is my mom's backyard. We spend so much time back here just talking, just vibing, just relaxing, and that's all I wanted to do this Sunday with this live. Again, I wanted to just share an important story with you just to let you know how important mental health is for all of us and how it affects families differently. Um, in case you don't catch this as we're doing it live, I am going to save it. Um, and so it will be available on Facebook, and I do plan to load it to my YouTube channel, and I'll include that information as well. Just waiting on you all to come in. Just come on in and vibe with us just a little bit. So, how you feeling your first Facebook Live?
I'm feeling wonderful. I'm just you. Come on in. Get your neighbor. Bring her too. Oh, go get your other friend. Well, just call her.
But just please share this because we want you to know. And I'm going to go ahead and, turn this music down now because what we have to say is so important and we just want you to be able to hear all of it. So, mental health. When people talk about mental health, you think about, the day you want to take off work because you need a mental health day. Well, actually, you should take those days. And I don't even call them mental health days. I call them just sick days or wellness days because you do need to focus on that. But our story gets a little deeper than that, and it's much more personal than that. I don't think there's anything that is more personal than your own family, your own child, your own grandchild. And so I'm sure many of you on Facebook know on May 15th, my sweet girl, my Sarah, my everything, graduated from Prairie View A&M with a degree in biology and a minor in chemistry. Please know that we flooded the timeline for a reason. A, we were proud of her accomplishment. B, we know what it took for her to get there. Mackenzie, and she's given me full authority to share, details of her story. But Mackenzie has struggled with some pretty serious mental health issues. And I think the reason I wanted to do this is to let other parents, other families know that it's not just you. You're not alone. If it can happen to us, it can happen to anybody. If anybody knows us, you know that we are a very close, tight-knit family. We ride together, we rock together. It's all that, together. But that still didn't protect us from having what was indeed a mental health crisis. I think I first started noticing signs that something wasn't right. I want to say probably March 2019. I noticed that, Mackenzie was just really snappy, almost what we would sometimes call like a smart mouth. But it was so much more than that. Only at the time I didn't realize that. I just thought, oh, she got a bad attitude. She needs to correct that attitude. She needs to do better. It was so much more than just a bad attitude. And I say that because young black women, or black females in general, we so often get labeled as the angry black woman or the angry black young girl, when sometimes it's just so much more than that. Sometimes it's a cry for help, and we don't know that it's a cry for help, because I didn't know that it was a cry for help. I felt like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna show her. I'm not gonna have nobody talking to me like that. And if anybody knows Mackenzie, that's completely out of character. But I thought, oh, okay, that's what she's doing now. But that wasn't it at all. And so it kind of passed a little bit. She still was a bit on edge, but that's one of the first signs. That's when I first saw the signs, and maybe I hadn't paid attention, or I would have seen them sooner. But fast forward to, that was March 2019. Fast forward to September 2019. September 2019 is when the bottom completely fell out. And when I say it fell out, it fell out. Mackenzie called me one night, and if you have children who are in college, I know they think they grown, but they not grown. I know they act like they don't want to talk to you on the phone. You call them every day, you text them every day, you have some way to communicate with them every day, because then you will know exactly what's going on. But anyway, September 2019, I get this phone call from Mackenzie. Well, I noticed I had missed several calls from her. It was like back to back missed calls. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what's going on? Why is she blowing me up like this? What's wrong? Well, she didn't really know what was wrong, and Lord, I didn't know what was wrong either. But when I tell you, I called her back, and the person who was on the other line from me, there was definitely something going on, something that I didn't recognize, something that I thought, okay, well, let me just talk to her for a little bit. But I found I could not talk her down. I could not get her to make sense. She was talking very quickly, just saying things that just did not make sense, just not clearly there was a problem. And I wanted to ignore it. I tried to ignore it, but my heart, my spirit would not let me ignore it. That is just how different it was. So when I tell you, you need to listen to your children and know who they are and what is normal for them, or what you think is normal for them, pay attention. So I called my mom that same night. I was like, Mom, Mackenzie's not really sounding too good. I think I'm gonna drive down there and just see what's going on. And I really, at this time, had no idea what it truly was. I had no idea that it was anything having to do with mental health, because at this stage, I'm still pretty ignorant about mental health issues. I honestly did not know anything about it. I know a whole lot more now, and I want to, from time to time, share that with you all. So Mom was like, oh yeah, let's just ride down there. So I'm thinking we're gonna ride down there, have a girls' day out, go to lunch, everything's gonna be fine. I didn't even, it's such a spur of the moment trip, and I really had a lot of work to do the next day, but I was like, rearrange your schedule, put that on the back burner, go see what's going on with Mackenzie. I'm so thankful that I did, because I don't know what would have happened had I not chosen to do that. And that's another thing, a lot of us, sometimes we so busy working, making a living, that we forget to make a life, and you a lot of times choose work over your well-being, over your children's well-being. Don't make that mistake. And I'm thankful this time I didn't make that mistake. So we didn't pack a bag, we didn't do anything, because we can't count the turnaround trips we've done going down to Prairie View, coming back. We didn't think it was really gonna be anything. But when I tell you, when we got down there and what we saw, we didn't even recognize Mackenzie. She was not herself. She was not anywhere near herself. Mom, you want to jump in and
Well, yeah, I can. I just want to say, though, that yes, we experienced a pretty horrific situation with Mackenzie, and it's just helped us understand a lot of things, not only about mental health, but about hospitals and hospital rules and situations. Because we ended up staying, I think, 3 nights at least in that hospital, and where they did not really allow people in the room. Sonia and I stayed in a room with her the whole time. And so, but you don't really understand the rules. You don't know that you can't just, once they admit them, you can't just take them out when you get ready to take them out. So that was another experience for us. And then, of course, we didn't come prepared, so we were having to go to Walmart and shop and do different things just to get, just to get necessities and that kind of thing. But the other thing I want to tell you about mental illness is that I don't have any statistics on this, but I would tell you that most of us have a period of mental illness that we don't necessarily share with people, but we feel it. And it doesn't always require any medication or anything. Sometimes it just requires our body just rekindling and getting a different chemistry together. But just know that when that happens, just take notes of how you feel, what you're doing, because it's going to come back in about 6 months. Just watch it. And so just kind of take notes on those kinds of things. And then too, get rid of all of the inferiority complex about mental health, and just open yourself up. Screen yourself. Give yourself a self-analysis of how you feel when things really get heavy on you. What do you do to relieve that stress? Because that's a lot of it. All mental health doesn't require a prescription. Sometimes it just requires us to just go through and rekindle ourselves. Maybe increase our exercise, maybe get a better diet, maybe start writing in our journals so we'll know when changes come. Well, did I feel this way one other time? Let me look back here and see what went on. And I just think that you have to be in tune with yourself, with your body, because your body chemistry does change, and different things brings that on. And so as we go through life, we're not going to stop. We're not going to stop for life, and life's not going to stop for us. So you're going to have to learn with whatever comes your way. You're going to have to learn how to deal with it. But with Mackenzie, we got her. We were so thankful that we were able to get her
Just
in time, and get her on some good meds. I mean, she's good old Mackenzie now again, and
But
so.
I want to say this about the meds. You don't automatically get the right combination of the meds, because like I said, this journey first started for us in September of 2019. September 2019, we knew we had to do something. First, we tried to take her to the little clinic that they have over on Prairie View's campus, and they were not equipped, to help us. And Mackenzie had a phenomenal experience. The HBCU experience is like none other, but I would want to open a dialogue with college campuses, particularly with Prairie View, because they need to up the services that are available for students right there on campus. Everybody doesn't have a Mackenzie who has a mom who's going to drive down just to see if everything's okay. And when they get there, they need to be able to give more support, because what we ended up doing is we took her to the hospital that's right there, Hermann Hospital, right there in Cypress. Well, another thing we learned about that is when you take someone, because we knew we couldn't bring her home back like that. We spent the night with her in her apartment, because that's just how bad it was. We thinking we going down there for a turnaround trip. We couldn't turn around and go anywhere, and we knew we couldn't bring her home with us like that without getting some kind of evaluation, some kind of help. So we first tried to take her to the health services at Prairie View. And they were like, well, we couldn't handle it. At first I thought maybe a counselor or something would just help. We were so far past a counselor at that point. So we took her to Hermann Hospital. And what we learned from that is if you take a loved one to a hospital because of mental health issues, make sure it's a hospital that has those kinds of services there. Part of the reason we stayed in there at Hermann in the emergency was like 3 days. Mm-hmm. We slept there with her for 3 days because Okay, sorry y'all, we had some Wi-Fi issues there, but we're back. But I was just telling you, we wound up
Methodist.
at Houston Methodist. And when I tell you, I can't speak for Methodist in Dallas. So when we live in Dallas, but I can't tell you anything about the program at Methodist in Dallas. And please know, we're not professionals. We're just mom and grandmom who have lived this, who have been through it. And if you have questions that I can't really see the comments very clearly, but if you want to DM me and ask me something personal that you don't want everybody on this live to see, please feel free to do that, because part of the reason I'm doing this is because I want you to know that you're not by yourself. You're not alone. And I think God allowed us to come through this so that we could share our story with other people and help other people. But again, back to Houston Methodist, one of the best programs ever. But here we were at Herman and Cypress. We're literally in the emergency room for 3 days waiting on a constable to come and transport Mackenzie as if she had committed some crime. She had not done anything, but she was a 21-year-old woman who was in a mental health crisis. Thankfully, they started her on the meds when we were in Cyprus. And so she started, even about our 3rd day there, we started to see her come back to herself. She started to be Mackenzie again. But when I tell you, the person that we took to Cyprus was just someone who was in a crisis. She was having what they call a psychotic break. And that wasn't going to be the last one that she would have. But the program at Methodist was so good for her. And when I tell you, this was pre-COVID, because I don't even know how we would have handled it in COVID, because pre-COVID, we once we got her, the constable took her to Methodist. I followed them there and met them there, but I couldn't even see her immediately. And when like my mom said, when you drop them off, you don't get to just pop in and see them when you want. You don't get to just take them out when you want to either. And again, like I was saying, when it comes to mental health issues, if you know Mackenzie, you know she's not a criminal. There was no reason for her to ever have to be in a constable's custody. But thankfully, she had some wonderful, wonderful men who were very gentle with her, who transported her, who, were very, very good with her.
Played good music for her.
Played good music for her, just trying to put her at ease, because imagine how she felt. And if you know Mackenzie, she's an extremely bright person, extremely loving person, extremely caring person. But here you find yourself, you've been sitting up in this hospital. Your mom and your grandma have been in here with you for 3 days. She just didn't know what to do, and really neither did we. We didn't either. And I want to shout out to my baby sister, Melanie Levy, because I would call her and, she would kind of help me through everything and kind of talk me through. She's the one who first told me, hey, why don't you try to get into Methodist? And so getting into Methodist, for us, we were able to do it because I had health insurance. Mm-hmm. If you do not have health insurance, that's another reason people suffer untreated for mental health issues, because when they first met us, they didn't know anything about us. They didn't know that, she came from an educated family. A pretty stable middle-class family. And that's why I want everybody to know, if it can happen to a family like ours, it can happen to anybody. So at first, they tried to handle us a little bit different, but then we had to let them know who we really were. And so they were going to try to send her to just one of these fly-by-night places. I mean, a place we didn't know anything about this place.
And the treatment, a lot of times they're just holding tanks, those places. So you really have to go online, look at the reviews, etc. Because just putting a person in a holding tank doesn't help. I mean, not only do they need medication, but they need counseling, they need coping skills. And she was able to get all of that at Methodist. They encouraged them to keep diaries, to record what goes on with them during the day, what their feelings are. And then they had such a diverse group of counselors. They had people that were very close to her age, in their late 20s, and that could identify with her. And then they had all age counselors. Really, they had older people that were able to give their perspective, and they had really good psychiatrists there. And they looked at everything, because when they're trying to diagnose you, to come up, it's not magical. And the thing about mental health is that there's a lot that we don't understand. And I don't know that we ever will. But one of the things that when they were trying to rule things out, they wanted to rule out schizophrenia. So they took her down and took a scan of her brain, which we were thankful for. You know, of course, here we are. We all of us in the elevator. We going down to get the brain. When she moved, we moved. She's going down to get the brain scan. And so the doctor said, I got good news for you. He said, it's not schizophrenia. He said, that's one thing we can rule out. He could look at the way her brain was, et cetera, et cetera. And so they didn't even really label it as bipolar. They just said it was
a psychotic episode.
Yes. And the medication would control it if once, like she said, once you get it correct, once you get the right amount of, I guess, the dosage correct, because as you change, your body changes, your medication has to change. So it's really in depth, but it's nothing to be fearful of. We were fearful because we didn't know anything about it.
Didn't know anything.
Period. Now, when I look back on it, I think all of us have had some psychotic episodes. I mean, when I just started going down the family tree, let me see, this one.
And that's another thing. When they ask you about your family history, I think a lack of understanding causes you to not answer that correctly because, you know, we're so used to saying, well, you know, that's how they are. That's just how they act. But truthfully, there very well could be some mental health issues in your family history. We know now that there probably have always been some in our family. We just didn't know it was that, and we just did not identify it as that. So, but the fact that she was able to get a brain scan, the fact that she was able to do all the things she did was because thankfully we had health insurance. And I wonder about how people who get treated, who come in there, who don't have advocates. What about the kids who are on Prairie View's campus who go through the same thing? Because I know she's not the only one. And they end up in there by themselves. They end up alone. Now, like my mom said, when she moved, we moved. We were not going anywhere. I actually, first of all, we didn't have any clothes. We didn't have anything. We went to Walmart and just got a few little items. And even in the hospital, when we were in the holding tank waiting on the constable, you're not supposed to have a phone in there. You're not supposed to have anything in there. But, you know, I used to work with middle school kids. So the one thing you're going to learn when working with middle school kids is how to hide a phone that you're not supposed to have. So you know your girl had her phone with her the whole time. Always. Because you weren't going to catch me without no phone. You was not going to catch me away from my daughter. But health issues, especially with women, Black women, sometimes they just want to say you just emotional, you just this, you just that, you just angry. Well, really, you just need some help, and it's help that you don't know that you need, and your family does not know that you need. We learned the hard way about needing help. Another person that I want to shout out and thank is Dr. Jacqueline Rogers. Dr. Rogers sat behind me and my family and Mackenzie in church for years and years and years. I never knew that I would need to call her in one of my lowest points, just for her to walk me through certain things, for her to explain things to me, for her to tell me things. But again, that's because we were blessed to have a strong village. So everybody doesn't have a village like that. So think about what happens to the people who don't have that kind of a village. So after we spent the 3 days in the emergency room waiting on the constable, we didn't know when they were going to come, you know, who it was going to be. That in itself was scary. So imagine how I feel, my mom feels, Mackenzie feels. We waiting on some constables to come pick up our child.
And we couldn't ride with her.
We couldn't go with her. So we had to turn her over to those constables as if she had done something wrong when she had not. But again, thankful. They were wonderful men. I praise them every day. They were amazing. We get to Methodist. And it is, you know, they explain she has to go through like almost like an orientation so that they can let her know, you know, what's going on. And then when they do let us in, they tell us, you know, when we can come. We could visit her 2 times a day. We could have 2 visitations. So we would visit her, I think we had 1 morning visit and then we had 1 evening visit. And the evening visit was late. So we would stay until it was, you know, time for, time for her to go to bed or it was lights out.
The duration of the visit, yeah.
And it was in there. And one of the things that Mackenzie was so happy when she finally got home, because she stayed at Methodist for a week. I remember the exact day she got out because it was September 11, 2019, my 50th birthday. And so actually, we had all again we had planned to be in Jamaica on my 50th birthday. I had planned this white party on the beach. I had ordered these T-shirts for all my family and friends who were going on this trip with me to Jamaica. I mean, we had planned all that out. And so obviously, once I get down there and figure out what's going on, I'm like, hey, I got to cancel this trip. So I canceled the trip. I canceled all that. And literally all I wanted for my birthday that year was for my daughter to be home and for her to be healthy. Thankfully, I was able to get both. And a lot of times, we grew up in a pretty spiritual and religious African American family. We grew up believing you work hard, you get your education, that will afford you the things that you need in your earthly lives, your material things. But then you pray hard enough, you give it to God, you let Him handle it. That will get you what you need, spiritually and in your afterlife. But please understand, people, you cannot pray this away. I don't care how hard you pray, you cannot pray this away. You're going to have to take sometimes drastic steps. It was not easy to check my child in to a hospital and allow constables to take her away and then allow her to be in a facility for a whole week, for the whole time. When you're not there, they can't have phone calls. I think it's only a certain time when they can call you, but you cannot call them. They can't even take a shower. The shower there drips like it was like, that was one of the things Mackenzie was so happy about when she got home, was that she could just take a regular shower, because the showers in facilities, they drip for various reasons. She couldn't have really anything, in her room. We went and we bought her, just things that had no drawstrings. They're very specific about the attire you have to wear in a place like that. And I guess some of that is because the attention doesn't need to be on your attire, and also the attention needs to be, on your healing, and nothing where you could possibly hurt yourself or hurt someone else. And so everybody's situation in a place like that is a little bit different, but I encourage you, if you're in the Houston area, you got a loved one who needs some help, Houston Methodist is literally, I can speak for their program. I'm not going to speak for anything or anyone else, but I will tell you to do your homework when you're thinking about having to put your loved one in a place, because there's some places you don't want them to be. Some places don't have your loved one's best interest at heart. And the first place they tried to send us definitely was not that. And so we knew that because, as soon as they said the name, we Googling, we looking at the reviews and everything, and we said no. And so they weren't used to anybody saying no. And then they said, well, where do you want to go? Because obviously they knew we were new to that. We didn't know anything about it. But again, my baby sister Melanie had told me where I wanted to go. And so I said, we want a bed at Methodist.
And we actually had a really pretty nice nurse, one of the nurses at the hospital at Cypress, one of them, kind of helped us. She made some phone calls. So I think that kind of helped us get in Methodist as well. And even at Cypress, all of the staff, we had two people that were really pretty nice. We had a male nurse that came in and talked with us and talked with Mackenzie and really made her feel at ease. And then we had the younger nurse that made the phone calls for us. And he'd say, oh, y'all got insurance? Yeah, I got insurance. He said, well, don't worry, y'all gonna get in. But that was going on like that second and a half day. So we still had to stay the third day. But I want to put one more plug in for Methodist, is that they had classes. It wasn't just sitting around, they had classes. Just like you have a full day of class at school, you had a full day of class there. You had counseling sessions, you had sessions with your psychiatrist, with your counselor, with your life skills, and you went through all kinds of classes. And they had to write every day. They had to write in a journal about what went on with them and what their feelings were that day and why they were feeling that way. And then, they counsel with us too. They do individual counseling and they do group counseling, because they asked her a lot of questions that she had to talk about with the group. At one point we were all the group, but they had individual sessions as well. So all of that put together, and then her coping skills. And they have they had this kind of sound room where you can just listen to
Just listen to music.
music or waterfalls or whatever. But those are all, they're just preparing you so when you get out, these are your coping skills. These are the things you need to do. Continue to write in your diaries, in your diary rather. Look at what's going on with you. Listen to yourself. If you can't sleep at night, you know, maybe do the waterfalls, maybe do the soft music, do whatever you need to do to get to sleep. And then, of course, when you before you get out, they they assign you a psychiatrist on the outside, because somebody has to prescribe your medicine for you, and that's not just your general practitioner that does that. That's someone that you're in contact with once you leave, that you can call, talk to, and go in for counseling sessions with them also. So it's a process. It's not necessarily something that just happens overnight. It's a process, and it's a process. I'm glad if it had to happen. I'm glad it happened when it did, because we were able to be there as a family and console. Because if she had been older, I don't know if we would have even
Been allowed
the right
in there. But, you know, she was 21, which was an adult, which meant what we could do was limited anyway. But they still were allowing, you know, families in there. And so they actually set up her first appointment with a psychiatrist, Dr. Lou, who is absolutely amazing. Because when we get to the next part of the story, we'll tell you how amazing Dr. Lou is. But Dr. Lou is based in Houston. Even that, you know, one thing COVID taught us is that we can do teledoc, we can do Zoom, whatever. So at this point, I don't really want her to have to change doctors. If we need to, we'll just drive down to Houston, you know, to see a doctor when we absolutely have to. But she left Methodist, and obviously the effect of all of that, you could see it. It was still just all in her, but she was so happy just to be home. And I remember we got in the car, and she was like, well, just could you let the window down and let the sunroof back? And so we did. It was just a little thing, just having the sunlight shine on her face. She wanted to go eat it someplace I had never even heard of it. I don't even remember what it was, but we went, you know, we ate there. But the things that she realized, okay, I'm out now. I can do this. Because I don't want to say that being in a setting like that is prison, but it is very restrictive. You don't have the freedoms, you know, that you are accustomed to, and it is confusing because, you know, you didn't do anything wrong, so you wondering kind of why am I going through all of this. So they put her on a couple of meds then, and so we set up the appointment with Dr. Lou. And so we get out, and so here we are. Now, mind you, this is her junior year of college. But, you know, prior to that, Mackenzie, y'all know as much as I brag on Facebook, she's been on the dean's list. I mean, you know, she's been making good grades because she's a very bright young lady. So here we are thinking, okay, what do we do? Do we bring her back to Dallas? Do we withdraw? You know, what do we do? And so that was a very hard decision. And so what we did was, once we got her out of Methodist, we brought her home for a little while, for a bit. And then she said, Mom, I need to go back to school. Can I go back to school? Now, as a parent, that was the hardest decision, hardest choice I ever had to, you know, agree to. Because honestly, at this point, it was not my choice. It was hers. So we take her back to school. She goes back, and now she is having to monitor her own medication, you know, getting to and from class, because at this point Mackenzie doesn't live on campus. She lives off campus in an apartment. So she's monitoring her own meds, you know, basically adulting. And so you know, we're gonna have these talks from time to time, not necessarily just about mental health, but just about parenting, you know, a young adult. You know, you're 21, you know, right now 22. That is a grown woman, yet they still require a level of parenting. Because when I tell you, what's the term, I mom so hard, we mom so hard. So we agree. She goes back to school. We don't withdraw. She kind of picks up, you know, wherever she was. And that's another thing. When somebody is in a crisis, like she was, there's certain parts of your brain that are just tuned. Because even while we were waiting, we were in the holding unit at in Cyprus at Herman, Mackenzie was still trying to do her schoolwork. She still was thinking about what she
Taking
had
her
to do for
exams.
school, taking her, trying to take her exams, trying to read up. She never lost focus of school. And I think that was part of her just trying to cope and just trying to balance it all, because basically it's just a chemical imbalance, and there's just a lot of things going on in your brain at one time. So after our stay at Methodist, we take her back to Prairie View. So in all, it's going well. She's doing very good. Um, but the medication wasn't the right level. So the next thing that happened, I think it was getting to be the fair. And so again, this medication is not level. It's not really where it needs to be. So she comes home, and by the time she gets home, she is such a nervous wreck. She had so much anxiety driving from Prairie View home, which is a drive, she's made more times than any time that we can count. But this time when she got home, she was just so much anxiety. She just couldn't. She ended up not even going to the fair because she had so much anxiety about just being in the crowd of people at the fair. So I knew then, I'm like, okay, this is not good. So she goes back to school. I think maybe we might have even followed her back that time just to make sure,
Yeah, we did.
she could get there okay, because she had such a hard time driving home alone. So we followed her back to make sure she got back to school. Well, she goes to see Dr. Lou. Dr. Lou's like, oh no, let me change these meds. So then that's the first time the meds get changed. She gets better. She comes back to herself. She's feeling fine. And y'all know, she was born a Delta, wanted to be a Delta her whole life. So during this time, Prairie View's like, hey, Ada Beta's back. Shout out to all the Ada Beta sorors. So, we start prepping and we're preparing and we're getting everything done, for her to, to submit, you know. Clearly, y'all know she made it because, oh, she's in that thing now. But in the back of my mind, as much as I wanted a legacy as a parent, I'm thinking, oh, I don't know, is this the right time? Is this the right thing to do? But basically, it was the only thing to do, because you have to let a person make their own choices, their own decisions. So fast forward to 2020. 2020, that pandemic hits. And that was probably one of the worst things that could have happened, because not only did the pandemic hit and the campus shuts down, which means she's isolated and alone in her apartment, Dr. Lou feels like, oh, she's doing so great. She doesn't need to be on this level of medication. So Dr. Lou starts adjusting the medication, dialing it back. So you put your meds are changing, plus you're in the pandemic, you are alone, you have been accepted for membership intake with Ada Beta, and y'all know that's a whole nother level of stress there. You've got your schoolwork, you have all these things. So Dr. Lou changed the meds. That didn't work out very well, because 2020, I experienced just a life-altering injury. Fell at the Founders Day luncheon, broke 3 bones in my ankle. It was my right leg, my driving leg, everything. I was completely incapacitated, had to have surgery the next day, had 7 screws and a plate put in the ankle, could not do anything. And if you ever need somebody to bust you out the hospital, this is my girl right here, because they was trying to handle me bad in the hospital. She was like, no, whatever, we going home. But so she brings me to her house. So here I am, just kind of laid up, incapacitated, kind of depressed myself, because I do have a house of my own that I'm used to being able to live in, and do whatever I want to do in. But I wasn't able to do anything. When I tell you, nothing. So if you've ever had that kind of surgery, you know how debilitating that is. I could not walk at all. It was basically immobile. Thank God for my dad, best dad ever. He, would drive me back and forth to work literally every day, because I wouldn't have been able to do it on my own. I couldn't do it on my own. So while I am basically living back in my parents' home due to my injury, I'm still talking to Mackenzie, and we're still we're excited at this point. I know that she's been accepted, you know, with the Ada Beta membership intake. So, you know, I'm gleeful, I'm excited, and she is too. She's super excited. But again, here comes the pandemic. Here comes the shift in her medication. So we basically are going into a tsunami. But this time, because of our previous experience, I knew what I was dealing with. I knew what I was looking at. So I'm thinking, okay, you know, it's going to get better. So myself, I started talking to Dr. Lou. Hey, Dr. Lou, something is not right. I need for you, you know, to help me with this because I'm in Dallas. Dr. Lou's in Houston. Mackenzie's in Prairie View, which is right side of Houston. So um, still, you know, it's not good. So when we finally realized we're in a lot of trouble here, um, she becomes a member of Delta. And when I knew something was really wrong, it's because I didn't see that level of just excitement. This is something you wanted your whole life. And I knew the reaction was off. It wasn't what I knew the reaction would have been or should have been. So I'm like, okay, something's not right here. So she gets increasingly just out of sync. Again, the conversations start to make less and less sense. Um, it's basically back to where we were in September 2019. So I'm still trying to talk to her, and again, the medication has been adjusted. It's off. It's just out of whack. It's out of sync. And again, we're in the pandemic, so she is on a call with her you know, her line sisters who are now her sorors, and she melts down on the Zoom in front of everybody, in front of all her line sisters, in front of her chapter advisor. She has what was another psychotic break in front of everyone. And so one night my phone just starts blowing up. It's her line sisters, it's her chapter advisor telling me, you know, we saw Mackenzie, she just started taking stuff and putting it in a bag, and she was just, you know, getting out. And in her mind, she felt like she had to get out. Again, this wasn't Mackenzie any longer. This was just that mental illness that was taking over. So this, I think, has to be the scariest night of our lives, because Mackenzie leaves her apartment, just walks out, didn't even lock the door. And I know the door wasn't locked because I called back to the apartment complex and asked them just to go check the door. Now, mind you, I'm on the lease, so they're going to do whatever I ask them to do anyway. It wasn't locked. They, you know, kindly locked it for me. But Mackenzie leaves, and doesn't put any gas in her car. She's so far out there, she doesn't realize I need gas for the car. What she told me later is that, and she had money for gas. She could have gotten gas, but then she was like, she didn't really remember where her wallet was, so she didn't buy any gas. And she said, I got to the gas pump, I didn't know where my wallet was. So she proceeds, and this is in the dead of night, proceeds to drive from Prairie View to Dallas in the middle of the night. Now, y'all know right in front of Prairie View is Sandra Bland Lane. You know, so, and this is during the time, okay, the George Floyd situation. There's just so much going on. And so here I am in the middle of the night. We don't know where she is. I didn't know how much gas was or was not in the car. I just know she didn't get any gas before she got on the road to drive from Prairie View to Dallas. Well, what do y'all think happened? The car runs out of gas in the middle of the night. And I think it was somewhere maybe like outside of Hearn, somewhere, because she was taking the back way, you know, from Prairie View. And this, y'all, is a time when you find out, when you're in a crisis like this, that's when you find out who your real friends are. So I want to give another special shout out to my big sis, Sean Kojo, Tristan, Trinity. You know, y'all are family, but this is when you know who your real friends are. Jayla, Naya, all of y'all. So I was able to get in touch with Jayla. I'm like, Jayla, you know, where is Mackenzie? Are you talking to her? you know, what's going on. So they sent some of their friends to pick Mackenzie up. Two guys, really good friends, because here we are in a pandemic, and y'all know how it was when we first shut down for the pandemic. Literally everything was shut down. They wasn't even supposed to be all out, but they leave Houston and go find Mackenzie in the middle of the night, somewhere outside of Hearn. So they call me and they're like, okay, we got her. They take her back to Houston, and she's gonna stay, you know, she's gonna stay with her friends in Houston. So my parents and I, again, I still can't drive. You know, I've got this broke foot. I can't drive, so I'm staying with my parents. We are petrified, but again, y'all know it's in the middle of the night. It's in the dark of night. So now we know that, okay, at least she is not on the side of the road. She is in Houston with friends. So we first chance we get, not even, I don't even think it was fully daylight when we left. Because I think she was getting more and more agitated. And when they get agitated, they get more and more out of control. So we leave. Jayla calls me, and I'm like, Jayla's like, no, it's not getting any better. So we leave, and you know, y'all know the time it takes to get from Dallas to Houston. We get there as soon as we can. The sun is just coming up, I think, by the time we get there. I hear Mackenzie before I even see her. She is just out of control. This whole time, you know, and if y'all know Mackenzie, she's not even that kind of person. That's just not even her character. But again, here I am, petrified that she's gonna run into the wrong police officer, you know, or the wrong person, period. And they're not gonna know that that's not her. They're not gonna know that she's not in her right mind. So we get her, we pull up, and she doesn't even realize that, okay, you know, my family is coming to get me. She starts to run from us. We had to chase her around the apartment complex to even get her to get in the car with us. And y'all know how we are close as a family. That's just where we were in that moment. So after that, we get her in there. Now I'm on the phone with Dr. Lou. So Dr. Lou is talking to her, and you know, again, she's even talking crazy to Dr. Lou. She's just talking crazy, period. So that was the first time, because my mom and I had seen that before. That was the first time my dad had ever seen it. And he could not believe it. That ride from from Houston back to Dallas was the longest ride we had ever taken. We could barely even stop for gas because we were afraid she was going to try to jump out of the car and run from us. So at this time, you know, we told Dr. Lou we are headed back to Dallas. The first stop we made when we get back to Dallas was to CVS, was to pick up her medication because Dr. Lou had to up it. So once we get her, we get the meds in her, and immediately once the meds get in there, you see them, they start to come back a little bit. I mean, she wasn't completely herself, but it calmed her down. And then in the midst of all of this, you know, prayers out to Samantha and Reggie, but you know, Reggie was a good friend of Mackenzie, and I wake up in the morning of the news, you know, of his passing, and so mind you, I'm fighting to keep my own child here, and she literally is just out there. So we trying to get over that hurdle, and again, we're still in a pandemic, which means we're still not supposed to be out and about. So I knew that was going to be just a concern. And so I get on the phone. I get on the phone with Dr. Lou again. Dr. Lou talks to her, kind of talks her through it. And so again, we think we got the meds situated, and again, gradually she started to come back to herself. But that break was so severe. It was so much. Now again, we still in school. We still are again taking biology classes, chemistry classes. It's online. We still doing good. We in there. We passed. So we go back. That was well, y'all, you know, spring 2020. At this time, you know, hey, that's my sorrow. But again, that was my indicator right there that the level of excitement she had about that wasn't where it should have been. So I knew to pay attention, that something is going on, something is not right. Sure enough, something wasn't right. So after that terrifying night of her being on the side of the road, and we had to go and find the car. Shout out to my boo, my bae, Antar. He has been there with us through all of this. So I said, if he didn't run away in all of this, he's a keeper. But he didn't. So we got back home, and he and I immediately get in the car to go find Mackenzie's car. We weren't even really sure where her car was because it was just on the side of the road somewhere. We had a general idea where it might be. So we get on the road, we go, we look for the car. We find it. Like I said, I think we found it just outside of Hearne. It had rained that night. Every window in that car was down. That car was soaking wet. And even just looking around in the car, you know, you could just tell something was going on with the person who was in this car. So the car is dead. So we have to, the car's dead. It didn't have any gas. So we go get some gas. We go get some blankets to put in there where you can just, barely just sit down because it was literally that wet. You couldn't even sit in it. So we get to the car. We get just enough gas to get us to the gas station, fill the car up. And now mind you, I'm like still in a boot, really, not even supposed to be driving. But at this point, I didn't really have much of a choice. So he followed me, and I drove her car back to Dallas once we got it, where we could get it back to Dallas. Now, mind you, we spent all summer, repairing the car, getting it fixed, because the car was pretty hauled out. It had been through some things. But I was less concerned about the car and more concerned about her. So we spent summer 2020, home, just trying to even things out. Fall 2020, she's okay. But then you have the side effects of the medicine, okay? So the medicine, and this is a lot of reason people don't want to take their medicine because they don't want to experience the side effects. So the medicine caused a significant amount of weight gain. So Dr. Lou was like, okay, let's try to mitigate that. So she adds a different prescription to that. But when she added that prescription, and I told Dr. Lou this myself, that was October 2020. That's when I finally saw the Mackenzie come back. I saw the real Mackenzie finally come back with that particular combination of meds. And that may have been like, the fourth try or something. So when I tell you, don't get discouraged when it doesn't work the first time. Keep trying, because everybody's body is different. Everybody's body changes. So just hang in there. So we get October 2020, Mackenzie's back. She's back to herself. She's doing well. December 2020, well, we still in this pandemic. We still doing everything online. So we're like, okay, it's no point in you keeping that apartment down there at Prairie View, and whatever you're doing there, you can do at home. And really, I just wasn't all that comfortable with her still being there in the apartment alone, because anything can happen. So she moves back home December 2020. Things are fine, things are good. She's herself. She's got the same fear that any graduating senior is going to have. But I told her that's normal. Everybody goes through that. And so fast forward, May 15th, 2021, our girl walks across that stage. So you have to understand that when you going through, you never know what everybody's going through. Because I promise, ain't none of y'all know we had been through all of that. I promise you, when you look at her, you didn't know that she had been through all of that. So you just have to know that it'll happen, okay? Your dreams still can come true. Don't feel any kind of way about your mental health, about a loved one's mental health. That is what it is. But don't be afraid to reach out for help. And like I said, DM me. I'm happy to answer whatever questions that I have. I don't have any, medical advice or anything like that, but I do have, as a mental health advocate, as somebody who fights for people with mental health issues right now, as a person who I guess, I need to learn how to fight for people who don't have any insurance, because the fact that we had insurance was a saving grace, for us. But please don't be afraid to DM me and ask me whatever you need to ask, and I will answer you to the best of my ability. I will be honest with you, and I'll share whatever resource I have with you. but we wanted to let you know that Mental Health Awareness Month is so far beyond, exercising, taking walks, the me time, massages, spa dates. All those things are important. Don't get me wrong. I love all of that. I love a good pedicure, manicure. I need all that right now. But you got to be ready and prepared when it's time for you to go beyond that if you have to. You may never have to, but if you do, it's all right. It's okay. Don't worry about it because it's going to be fine. Yeah. What you got to say about it?
I just want to say, whatever you're going through, try to be real with yourself. A lot of times you don't even recognize what's bothering you. You just know that you're a little off that day or whatever. But try to stay in, I think, real time with yourself. And when I say real time, just be honest with yourself and what you're feeling, and don't be afraid to express it if you have to. But stay prayerful. Make sure you pray daily, and exercise is a big part of it. I don't care what you're doing. You may not be on any medication. I need any medication, but you need to get up and exercise, because I'm going to tell you something. Movement is medicine. So
Yeah.
you got to move. If you are a person my age, I'm 72 years old, I try to stay active and I try to stay mobile. Because if I don't, then I know what happens. I won't be able to, not necessarily mentally, but I have mobility issues. So just stay with all of that. And see, when you start having all these other issues, that brings on your mental upset as well. So, mental health goes in a lot of different directions. And so just find out where you are with it. And then also, if you have loved ones that are going through things, it's not going to be that easy to get them to accept help. But do your best and try to just open up different avenues for them so that they can realize it themselves. And so just stay focused, stay prayerful, and stay healthy as you can.
And get yourself some therapy. There's nothing wrong with getting some therapy, with getting some help for yourself, because again, never in my wildest dreams did I think that I would be in this situation. We use terms like, oh, she cray, oh, she crazy for real. We done seen crazy for real, okay? And it's different when it's you, when it's yours, when it's your life. So that's why I kept saying, this is a real life story. And like I said, Mackenzie was okay with me sharing the details of her story, because it's not just her story, it's our story, it's our family story. So when she went across that stage on May the 15th, we all went with her because we know what it took for her to get there. Now, she did the work and she never stopped doing the work, but imagine how hard it was for her when she had everything else going on in her brain. And the chemistry of it was just off. So as a people, as women, as Black women, please make sure that A, you listen to your children. B, if you need some help, if they need some help, that you get it. Even if it requires some medication, take it. It will change your life. You don't understand the differences and the changes that it can provide for you. So we just wanted to share our story with you, so it's not just you. It could literally be anybody. And things just happen. But my mom and I are going to start having these little chats with you guys, pretty frequently. And again, this is mental health awareness. So we're going to talk about mental health all the time. But that won't be the only topic that we talk about. And, we were thinking about, what would be a good name for us? Because if you see our shirts here, our shirt says Mom, Daughter Squad, Unbreakable Bond. Our bond was always unbreakable, but it is seriously unbreakable now. And I think we're blessed to have that, because I know not everybody still has their mother, and if you have your mother, you're not blessed to be best friends with yours like mine, because this is my number one home girl. I mean, this who we hang out with. This who I talk to every single day. And one time somebody was joking with me about, you just might not show up. I was like, I don't have to worry about that, because if I don't show up somewhere, my mama gonna call the police on y'all, because she talks to me every day. So I'm not even worried about anything. But anyway, back to our our little sharing with you guys, and you feel free to share with us. We're gonna be doing a little broadcast, and we decided to call ourselves 2-piece and a pepper. I'm a piece, she a
I'm a
piece.
piece.
And of course, y'all know that Mackenzie is that pepper because she keeps it spicy for all of us. But thank you for listening to this. And again, I am going to save this live. I am going to load it to my YouTube page, which I will share, my YouTube channel. And just know you're not alone. It's not just you. And if it's you, it could be anybody. So, y'all stay blessed.
Good to visit with you.